is the bedrock of commercial driving safety and regulation. Mastering this information is the first step toward getting your CDL. Let's make sure you know it all. What is the most important reason for doing a vehicle inspection? Safety for yourself and other road users. A thorough inspection ensures the vehicle is fit for the road, preventing breakdowns and accidents. On to the next one. What are the three kinds of emergency equipment you must have? Fire extinguisher, spare electrical fuses, and warning devices. Triangles. These items are required to handle emergencies and roadside breakdowns safely. What's after this? What is the minimum tread depth for steering axle tires? 432-inch. Steering tires have stricter rules because they are crucial for vehicle control. Moving on. What is the minimum tread depth for all other tires? 232-inch. While this is the minimum, it's always safer to have more tread for better traction. So, what's next? Why should you put the starter switch key in your pocket during the pre-trip inspection? To prevent someone from moving the vehicle. This is a vital safety measure to prevent accidental movement while you or others are inspecting the vehicle. Next on our list. What is hydroplaning? When tires lose contact with the road due to water. This happens when your tires ride on a layer of water instead of the road surface, causing loss of control. Okay, what's after this? What is the proper technique for braking on a long downgrade? Use a low gear and apply brakes intermittently, snubbing. This helps control speed while preventing the brakes from overheating and experiencing brake fade. Let's move on. How far ahead should a driver look while driving a commercial vehicle? 12 to 15 seconds. This provides enough time to identify hazards and react safely, especially given the longer stopping distances of CMVs. What about this next one? What is perception distance? The distance your vehicle travels from the time your eyes see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. This distance is a key component of total stopping distance and is affected by driver focus. On to the next question. What is reaction distance? The distance traveled from the time your brain tells your foot to move until your foot actually pushes the brake pedal. This distance is also a component of total stopping distance and is a measure of driver response time. Moving forward, what is the term for applying and releasing the brakes in succession to slow down without locking the wheels? Stab braking. This technique is used in non-ABS vehicles during emergency stops to keep steering control. Let's consider the next one. When driving in heavy fog, which lights should you use? Low beam headlights. High beams reflect off the fog, making it harder to see. Low beams provide better penetration. And the next point. What does a convex curved mirror do to objects? Make objects appear smaller and farther away than they really are. And convex mirrors provide a wider field of view but distort distance, so be careful. What's next? What is the proper use of your horn? To warn others of a hazard. The horn is a safety tool used only to alert others to immediate danger. Moving on to this, what are the three factors that determine total stopping distance? Perception distance, reaction distance, and braking distance. Total stopping distance is the sum of these three factors. All right, let's see. Doubling your speed from 20 miles per hour to 40 miles per hour increases your braking distance by how much? 4 times 4x. Braking distance increases exponentially by the square of the speed increase, highlighting the danger of high speed. What's after this? What is the minimum number of reflective triangles you must carry? 3, 3. These are mandatory safety devices for warning traffic if your vehicle is disabled on the side of the road. Next question. If you are being tailgated, what is the best thing to do? Increase your following distance. Creating more space ahead of you allows you to brake more gradually, giving the tailgater more time to react. Let's get to this one. What is a hazard in terms of safe driving? Any road condition or other road user that is a potential danger. Identifying hazards is the first step in defensive driving. Okay, what's next? When should you downshift a manual transmission? Before starting down a hill and before entering a curve. Downshifting before these events uses engine compression for control, reducing reliance on service brakes. Moving on. What is the safest way to back a commercial vehicle? Use a spotter and back slowly. Backing is the most dangerous maneuver. A spotter provides visibility into blind spots. So what's next? What must you do if you are transporting cargo? Inspect the cargo and its securement within the first 50 miles of a trip. This critical check ensures the load hasn't shifted after initial travel. Next on our list, what must you check on the steering system during your pre-trip inspection? Steering wheel play, linkage, and power steering fluid. Excessive steering wheel play, more than about 10 degrees, can indicate a serious defect. Okay, what's after this? Name some key suspension system defects. Broken leaves in a leaf spring, cracked or broken hangers, or leaking shock absorbers. Suspension problems compromise vehicle control and stability. Let's move on. What must you check wheel bearing seals for? Leaks. Leaking seals mean lubricant is being lost, which can lead to bearing failure and wheel loss. What about this next one? Why is cargo securement important? To prevent the load from shifting, which could affect steering and stability. A shifting load can cause a loss of control, especially on curves or during braking. On to the next question. What is the minimum number of tie-downs required for a 20-foot load? 2. Tie-downs. Cargo must be secured by at least 1 tie-down for every 10 feet of cargo length, and always at least 2 tie-downs. Moving forward, what is the minimum number of tie-downs required for cargo not exceeding 5 feet in length? 1 tie-down. However, a tie down is required for every 10 feet of cargo, so even short loads require a minimum of 2 if they are not fully contained. But for cargo under 5 feet, 1 tie down is the minimum if it is contained and meets other criteria. Always aim for 2. Let's consider the next one. What is the maximum back blood alcohol concentration for a CDL holder operating a CMV? 0.04%. This limit is much stricter than for non-commercial drivers. And the next point, what is the consequence for a first offense of driving a CMV under the influence of alcohol? At least a 1-year disqualification. A serious violation will lead to a lengthy loss of your commercial driving privileges. What's next? If you're convicted of a traffic violation other than parking in a CMV, how long do you have to notify your employer? 30 days. Federal regulations require you to keep your employer informed of any traffic convictions. Moving on to this. How long must you hold a commercial learner's permit, CLP, before taking the CDL skills test? 14 days. This minimum holding period ensures you have time to practice and prepare before testing. All right, let's see. What is the safest speed to drive? The speed that allows you to stop within your sight distance. You should always be able to stop before hitting any object you can see ahead of you. What's after this? What is the most common cause of commercial vehicle rollovers? Driving too fast on curves. CMVs have a high center of gravity, making them highly susceptible to rollovers when cornering too quickly. Next question. What is the proper procedure if a tire blows out? Hold the steering wheel firmly, stay off the brakes, and slow down gradually. Maintain control and avoid sudden braking, which can cause a skid. Let's get to this one. What is an escape ramp or runaway ramp used for? To stop vehicles that have lost their brakes on a steep downgrade. These ramps use sand, gravel, or an uphill grade to safely slow down out-of-control vehicles. Okay, what's next? If your vehicle is involved in a fire, what type of extinguisher should you use for a fuel or oil fire? A BC or ABC extinguisher. These types are rated for flammable liquids B and electrical fires C. Moving on. What is the bridge formula used for? To limit the weight on axles to prevent damage to bridges and roads. The formula regulates axle spacing and weight to ensure infrastructure protection. So, what's next? What does the anti-lock braking system, ABS, do? Helps you keep the vehicle under control during hard braking. ABS prevents wheel lockup, allowing you to steer while stopping. Next on our list. What is controlled braking? Applying firm brake pressure without locking the wheels. This technique is used for stopping quickly while maintaining steering ability. Okay, what's after this? What are the 2 types of vision a safe driver needs? Foresight, looking ahead and seeing the whole road scene, checking mirrors. You need to constantly scan the road ahead and check your mirrors frequently. Let's move on. What is the best way to deal with an aggressive driver? Avoid confrontation, ignore gestures, and safely allow them to pass. Do not engage with aggressive drivers. Your priority is safety. What about this next one? What should you do if you become sleepy while driving? Pull over and get some sleep. Drowsy driving is dangerous. A quick nap or a full night's sleep is the only cure. On to the next question. What are the main signs of drowsy driving? Yawning, drifting between lanes, eyes closing, or going out of focus. Recognize these signs in yourself or your coworkers and take immediate action. Moving forward, where should you place warning triangles if your CMV breaks down on a 2-way road? 10 feet, 100 feet, and 200 feet behind the vehicle. The placement must be appropriate for the road type to give oncoming traffic maximum warning. Let's consider the next one. What is the purpose of the governor in an air brake system? To control when the air compressor pumps air into the air tanks. The governor sets the cut-in and cut-out pressures for the air system. And the next point. When transporting hazardous materials, what do the placards on the vehicle indicate? The hazardous class of the material being transported. Placards warn other road users and emergency personnel of the specific danger. What's next? What is the primary concern when hauling a dry bulk tank? The load shifting due to the high center of gravity. Even though the material is dry, it can still shift like a liquid, especially if the tank is only partially full. Moving on to this. How can you check for loose lug nuts during a pre-trip inspection? Look for rust trails, shiny metal around the lug nuts. Rust streaks or shiny areas indicate movement and could mean the lug nuts are loose. All right, let's see. What is the off-tracking phenomenon? The rear wheels of a long vehicle or trailer follow a different path than the front wheels, especially in turns. This requires the driver to compensate by swinging wider on turns to avoid hitting curbs or other objects. That completes part 1 of our study guide for the CDL General Knowledge Test. This information forms the basis of all safe commercial driving. Let's continue with part 2 of your CDL Knowledge Review. This section covers critical safety, hours of service, HOS, and specialized vehicle operation concepts. What is the maximum number of hours a property-carrying driver can drive after 10 consecutive hours off duty? 11 hours. This is the core driving limit rule, defining the maximum time behind the wheel following a proper rest break. On to the next one. The 14-hour rule for property-carrying drivers refers to the maximum number of hours a driver can be on duty after coming on duty. What is this limit? 14 consecutive hours. Once you start your shift, this 14-hour clock includes all on-duty and rest time and cannot be extended. What's after this? How often should air tanks in an air brake system be drained? At the end of each working day. Draining removes moisture and oil, preventing rust and freezing within the brake system components. Moving on. What is the primary purpose of the supply pressure gauge in an air brake system? To show how much air pressure is in the air tanks. This gauge monitors the system's total stored air, indicating the pressure available for braking. So what's next? In a dual air brake system, if a low air pressure warning comes on for one system, you should stop and safely park your vehicle immediately. A dual system warning signifies a serious leak in half of your braking system, requiring an immediate and safe stop. Next on our list, when should you apply the parking brake? Every time you park your vehicle. Always set the parking brake to prevent accidental rolling, even on level ground. Okay, what's after this? Why is it more dangerous to drive an empty truck than a fully loaded one? Empty trucks require greater stopping distance because they have less traction. With less weight over the drive axles, the tires are more likely to lock up and skid during braking. Let's move on. What is brake fade and what is its most common cause? Brakes lose effectiveness due to excessive heat. Overuse on long downgrades causes overheating, which significantly reduces friction and stopping power. What about this next one? What can happen if you do not have enough weight on your steering axle? Steering axle weight may be too light to steer safely, poor traction. Insufficient weight on the front tires can cause the vehicle to wander or lose grip in turns. On to the next question. What is the purpose of blocking and bracing in cargo securement? To prevent the cargo from sliding or tipping. Blocking prevents horizontal movement, bracing prevents vertical movement, tipping or rocking. Moving forward. Which types of cargo are considered unstable loads that require extra caution on curves? Hanging meat and livestock. The shifting nature of these loads creates a higher risk of rollover on curves or during sudden maneuvers. Let's consider the next one. When driving a vehicle with a high center of gravity, what is the greatest danger? Rollover when taking curves or swerving. The high center of gravity makes the vehicle less stable and more likely to tip over during lateral forces. And the next point. How can you check the slack adjusters on your air brake system? Park on level ground, chock the wheels, release the parking brake, and pull hard on each slack adjuster. If the push rod moves more than 1 inch, the brakes are out of adjustment. What's next? When stopped on a hill, how can you start moving without rolling backward? Use the parking brake or trailer brake hand valve to hold the vehicle until engine power is applied. This hill start technique prevents rollback until the clutch and accelerator can engage. Moving on to this, what are the two main ways to tell you when to shift to a different gear, engine speed M and road speed, MPH? Listening to the engine sound, RPM, and checking the speed gauge guides smooth gear selection. All right, let's see. What should you do before entering a curve? Slow to a safe speed and downshift to the proper gear. Brake and downshift before the curve so you can accelerate slightly through it for better control. What's after this? What is the maximum allowable play, free play, in the steering wheel of a CMV? More than 10 degrees, or 2 inches on a 20-inch wheel, must be fixed. Excessive play indicates looseness in the steering system that compromises control. Next question. What does a red triangle with an orange center seen on the back of a vehicle signify? It is a slow-moving vehicle, traveling 25 miles per hour or less. This emblem warns faster drivers that the vehicle ahead is traveling at a significantly lower speed. Let's get to this one. What must you check on the windshield during the pre-trip inspection? Wipers and washer fluid level/operation. Clear visibility is non-negotiable for safe driving and must be confirmed. Okay, what's next? What does the abbreviation GVWR stand for? Gross vehicle weight rating. This is the maximum operational weight the vehicle's manufacturer specifies it can safely carry. Moving on, what is the difference between GVW and GVWR? GVW is the actual weight. GVWR is the maximum weight rated by the manufacturer. GVW is the measured weight at any time. GVWR is the hard limit. So what's next? What is the primary cause of a rear drive wheel braking skid? Applying the brakes too hard, causing the drive wheels to lock up. Locking the drive wheels causes a loss of traction and control, often leading to a jackknife in combinations. Next on our list, what action should you take to correct a drive wheel braking skid? Stop braking, turn quickly, and countersteer. Release the brake pedal completely to allow the wheels to roll and regain steering control. Okay, what's after this? If you are involved in a crash, what is the first action you should take to prevent another crash? Protect the area, set out warning devices. Warning others prevents secondary crashes, which are often more severe. Let's move on. How often must you recheck your cargo and securing devices during a trip? After driving for 3 hours or 150 miles and after every break. This federally required check ensures the load hasn't shifted and is still secure. What about this next one? What is the purpose of header boards, headache racks? To protect the driver from cargo that might shift forward in a crash or hard stop. This strong barrier prevents loads from entering the cab. On to the next question. When driving in very hot weather, what happens to tar on the road pavement? It bleeds and makes the road surface slippery. The road surface can become oily and slick due to melting tar, reducing tire traction. Moving forward. What can happen if you force an automatic transmission into a lower gear at high speeds? Damage to the transmission and loss of engine braking effect. Attempting to force a downshift too early can severely damage the gearbox. Let's consider the next one. What is the proper way to hold the steering wheel? With both hands on opposite sides of the wheel. This provides the best control and leverage in the event of a sudden event like a tire blowout. And the next point. Where should you place your reflective triangles if you stop on a curve or hill where visibility is reduced? Place them up to 500 feet before the vehicle. The furthest warning device must be placed where it provides maximum advance notice to traffic. What's next? When transporting livestock, why is extra caution needed on curves? The moving animals can lean and shift the vehicle's center of gravity. The shifting weight of the live load can dangerously compound the lateral forces of a curve. Moving on to this. What is one of the most important things to check when inspecting an open-top trailer, flatbed, load? The cargo is covered to protect it from weather and to protect people from spilled cargo. Beyond securement, ensuring the cargo is covered prevents road debris hazards. All right, let's see. What should you check before transporting a sealed load? You are not exceeding the gross weight or axle weight limits. The driver is ultimately responsible for legal weight limits, even if they didn't load the cargo. What's after this? If you are driving a vehicle that is over 13 feet tall, what must you be constantly aware of? Clearance height of bridges, overpasses, and signs. Always know your vehicle's height to avoid striking overhead structures. Next question. How often is a CDL holder required to submit to a DOT medical examination? At least every 2 years. This is required to maintain the physical qualifications needed to safely operate a CMV. Let's get to this one. What are the 4 main responsibilities a driver has related to cargo? Inspect, recognize overloads, know it is secured, and ensure it does not obscure your view access to equipment. These 4 points summarize the driver's legal and safety duties regarding the load. Okay, what's next? What is the proper distance for bringing your vehicle to a complete stop before the nearest rail of a railroad crossing? Between 15 and 50 feet. This ensures a safe margin from the tracks without obstructing other roadways. Moving on. When are you prohibited from shifting gears while crossing railroad tracks? Anytime you are actually crossing the tracks, shifting can cause the vehicle to stall, leaving it vulnerable on the tracks. So, what's next? What is the rule regarding the use of lighted flame-producing emergency signals, flares? They cannot be used if your vehicle is carrying flammable materials. Flares can ignite flammable cargo or spills. Use reflective triangles instead. Next on our list, what is the main danger when driving through a tunnel or coming out of a long tunnel? Sudden changes in light, road conditions, and strong winds when exiting. Your eyes need time to adjust to the light change, and strong exit winds can push the vehicle laterally. Okay, what's after this? What should you do if your service brakes fail while on the road? Pump the brake pedal, shift to a lower gear, and use the parking brake gently. Pumping may restore air pressure, engine braking helps slow the vehicle, and the parking brake is a last resort. Let's move on. What is the definition of aggressive driving? Operating a vehicle in a selfish, bold, or pushy manner without regard for others' rights or safety. This driving behavior significantly increases the risk of a crash. What about this next one? What are the risks of driving while ill? Slow reaction time, impaired chair judgment, and potential loss of consciousness. Driving while sick is a serious safety risk and violates the duty to drive safely. On to the next question. Why is it unsafe to drive with a cargo load piled high, even if it is secured? It raises the vehicle's center of gravity, increasing the risk of rollover on curves. Height severely compromises stability, regardless of how well the load is tied down. Moving forward, how far should a driver look ahead when driving in a city environment? At least 1 city block. Scanning a block ahead provides enough time to react to traffic lights, pedestrians, and sudden stops. Let's consider the next one. What does it mean to stab brake? Applying the brakes hard until the wheels lock, then releasing them until the wheels unlock, and repeating. This is an emergency technique for non-ABS vehicles to maximize braking while preventing a prolonged skid. And the next point. When are you allowed to use a handheld cell phone while operating a CMV? Never, except to call emergency services. Federal regulations prohibit the use of a handheld mobile phone while driving a CMV. What's next? What is the potential consequence of driving a CMV with a revoked, suspended, or canceled CDL? Disqualification of the CDL and possible fines, jail time. This is a severe violation resulting in mandatory loss of commercial driving privileges. Moving on to this. What should you do immediately if you see a small cardboard box in your lane on the highway? Steer around it if it is safe to do so, treating it as a possible hazard. Never assume a seemingly harmless object is safe. Treat all roadway debris as a potential danger. It could contain something heavy. All right, let's see. If you are driving a vehicle with a manual transmission, what should you do every time you leave the vehicle? Set the parking brake and put the transmission in gear. This provides a crucial secondary safeguard against the vehicle rolling away. What's after this? Back for the final round. Let's conquer these remaining CDL general knowledge topics, covering everything from maintenance checks to coupling procedures and legal requirements. What is the minimum amount of working spare fuses if the vehicle uses fuses that a CMV must carry? 1 for each kind and size needed, unless the vehicle has circuit breakers. You must have backups for every type of fuse used in the vehicle so you can quickly replace a blown one. On to the next one. Who is required to sign the previous day's DVIR, driver vehicle inspection report, certifying that defects were repaired or were unnecessary? The motor carrier mechanic and the new driver. The carrier mechanic certifies the repair, and the new driver signs to confirm they reviewed the report and the vehicle is safe to operate. What's after this? What is the proper procedure for testing the low air pressure warning signal? Fan the brakes until the warning comes on at or below 60 psi. This test confirms the low air warning system is working and will alert you to dangerously low air pressure. Moving on, the safety release valve on the air tanks is set to open automatically when the pressure reaches what level? 150 psi. This valve prevents the tanks or lines from bursting if the governor fails and the compressor overpressurizes the system. So what's next? What is the main danger if the exhaust system is leaking underneath the cab? Poisonous fumes, carbon monoxide, can enter the cab or sleeper berth. Carbon monoxide is a deadly, odorless gas. Exhaust leaks must be fixed immediately. Next on our list. When checking the suspension system, a vehicle will be put out of service if what portion of a leaf spring is missing or broken, 1/4 or more of the leaves are missing or broken. A defect of this magnitude severely compromises the vehicle's handling and stability. Okay, what's after this? The primary purpose of clearance lights on a CMV is to show the outer width and height of the vehicle. These lights help other drivers accurately judge the size of your commercial vehicle at night. Let's move on. Which of these vehicle defects must be reported on the Driver Vehicle Inspection Report, DVIR? Any defect that affects the safety of the vehicle's operation. Only safety critical defects are required to be reported, though many companies require reporting all defects. What about this next one? If you must leave the road to avoid a hazard or crash, you should keep in mind that it is often safer to hit something soft like bushes than something hard like a concrete wall. Evasive action should prioritize hitting objects that will cause less injury and damage. On to the next question. Perception distance is the distance your vehicle travels from the time your eyes see a hazard to the time your brain knows it is a hazard. This distance accounts for the human mental process of recognizing a danger. Moving forward, what is the best method to use for turning quickly to avoid an obstacle? Evasive steering. Firmly grip the steering wheel and turn no more than what is needed. A small, quick turn is usually safer than a big, sweeping turn, which increases the risk of rollover. Let's consider the next one. What is the term for a CMV's rear wheels following a path that is wider or narrower than the front wheels in a turn? Off-tracking. This requires the driver to compensate by swinging wide when turning to keep the rear wheels from hitting curbs or objects. And the next point. When driving on a wet road, you should reduce your speed by about 1/3. Reducing speed significantly on wet roads increases tire traction and prevents hydroplaning. What's next? When should you use your high beams at night? Whenever it is safe and legal, and when there is no oncoming traffic for at least 500 feet. High beams provide maximum visibility when driving in rural or unlit areas. Moving on to this. Which of the following conditions may produce a skid? Driving too fast, overbraking, or oversteering. A skid occurs when the tires lose friction due to excessive speed or abrupt maneuvers. All right, let's see. What is the minimum recommended safe following distance for a 40-foot vehicle traveling at 50 miles per hour? 5 seconds, 1 second per 10 feet of vehicle length, plus 1 second for speed over 40 miles per hour. The formula is 4 seconds, 40 feet, 10 feet, plus 1 second for the speed above 40 miles per hour. What's after this? Why should you limit the use of your vehicle's horn? It may startle other drivers. The horn should only be used as a warning signal, not to express frustration. Next question. What is the major reason for inspecting your vehicle during a trip en route inspection? To ensure the cargo is still secure and the tire's brakes are not overheating. En route checks prevent accidents caused by shifting cargo or mechanical failure. Let's get to this one. When downshifting, the most important rule is to not shift until you have reached a speed that allows you to engage the gear without using the clutch or accelerator suddenly. The goal is a smooth transition that doesn't put stress on the transmission or the vehicle. Okay, what's next? When should you downshift a manual transmission? Before starting down a hill and before entering a curve. Downshifting before the hazard allows the engine to assist in controlling speed. Moving on. What is the process of double clutching for non-synchromesh transmissions? Clutch neutral clutch gear. This technique synchronizes the engine speed with the transmission speed for a smooth shift. So what's next? What is the main danger of using engine retarders, Jake brakes, when the road is slippery? The retarder can cause the drive wheels to skid. Engine retarders can apply too much force to the drive wheels, causing a loss of traction. Next on our list, if your vehicle is equipped with an automatic transmission, when should you select a low-range gear? Before starting down a steep grade, selecting a low gear before the descent engages the engine braking effect and helps prevent brake fade. Okay, what's after this? What type of fire can you use water to put out? Tire fires and vehicle interiors, Class A. Water is generally ineffective or dangerous on fuel oil, Class B, or electrical, Class C fires. Let's move on. If you see an engine fire, what is the best immediate action? Shut off the engine immediately. Shutting off the engine stops the fuel and air supply, potentially starving the fire. What about this next one? After an accident, if you are required to report it to the state, how soon must you typically submit the written report? Within 5 to 10 days, depending on the state. The time frame for reporting serious accidents varies by state law, but it is typically soon after the incident. On to the next question. What is the final action you must take after setting out your emergency warning devices, triangles? Contact the police and/or your company. After protecting the scene, you must notify the necessary authorities and/or your dispatch. Moving forward, what should you do if the engine overheats and the coolant reservoir is empty? Wait until the engine has cooled completely before checking and adding coolant. Opening the cooling system when hot can cause scalding from steam and hot coolant. Let's consider the next one. When coupling a tractor to a trailer, how can you be sure the fifth wheel jaws have locked onto the kingpin? Pull gently forward against the locked trailer and/or look into the fifth wheel gap. The tug test and visual inspection are critical to confirming a secure connection. And the next point, during the coupling process, once the kingpin is locked in the fifth wheel, what is the next critical step? Raise the landing gear until it's fully off the ground and slightly crank the handle to secure it. Ensure the landing gear is fully up to prevent striking the ground while driving. What's next? When uncoupling, after connecting the air lines, but before backing under the trailer, you must test the tractor protection valve and the trailer air brakes. This is incorrect for uncoupling. This step is critical before coupling, backing under the trailer, to ensure the trailer brakes work and the air lines are properly connected. The next step after connecting air lines during coupling is to check the air supply to the trailer. Moving on to this. What is the purpose of the glad hands? To connect the service and emergency air lines from the truck to the trailer. Glad hands are coupling devices that connect the air lines between the tractor and trailer. All right, let's see. The bridge formula is designed to permit less maximum axle weight for axles that are closer together. This formula protects bridges and roadways from excessive concentrated stress caused by heavy axles that are closely spaced. What's after this? What is the consequence for a CDL driver caught with a blood alcohol concentration BIC of 0.04% or higher in a CMV? Driver will be placed out of service for 24 hours, followed by a 1-year disqualification for the first offense. This is a major violation of federal regulations. Next question. You are considered to have committed a serious traffic violation if you're convicted of excessive speeding, 15 miles per hour or more over the limit, or reckless driving. Serious violations also include improper lane changes and following too closely. Let's get to this one. If a CDL holder is convicted of a first violation of a serious traffic offense, what is the minimum CDL disqualification period? 60 days for the first offense. A second serious violation within 3 years results in a 120-day disqualification. Okay, what's next? What is the primary function of a motor carrier safety permit, MCSP? Allows a carrier to transport certain highly hazardous materials. This permit ensures carriers meet strict safety and security requirements for extreme hazmat loads. Moving on a flatbed trailer, what is the minimum number of tie-downs required for a cargo load that is 15 feet long? 1 tie-down for every 10 feet of cargo, but minimum of 2, regardless of length. Federal rules require a minimum of 2 tie-downs regardless of the length, provided the length is under 20 feet. So what's next? Cargo that can shift easily, such as dry bulk, grain, or sand, requires caution because it has a high center of gravity and the load shifts as you take curves. The shifting material acts like a liquid, compounding the rollover risk on curves. Next on our list, which of these is a good rule for balancing cargo weight? Distribute the heaviest cargo items as low as possible. Placing heavier cargo lower minimizes the vehicle's center of gravity, increasing stability. Okay, what's after this? If you're being tailgated, the correct action is to increase your following distance to give yourself more time to react and brake gently. A larger buffer zone allows for smoother deceleration, reducing the chance of the tailgater hitting you. Let's move on. When driving through a construction zone, what is the most important thing to watch for? Sharp pavement drop-offs or uneven road surfaces. These conditions can lead to loss of control, tire damage, or steering issues. What about this next one? When driving in heavy rain, if your tires start to hydroplane, what should you do? Stop accelerating, push in the clutch, and let the vehicle slow down naturally. Do not use the brakes. Letting the vehicle slow down naturally allows the tires to regain contact with the road. On to the next question. When driving in fog, you should use low beam headlights. High beams reflect off the fog, making it harder to see. Moving forward, what should you do to signal to drivers behind you that you are about to slow down or stop due to a hazard? Lightly tap your brake pedal or turn on your 4-way flashers. Tapping the brake provides a strong, quick warning without significantly slowing down. Let's consider the next one. If the oil temperature gauge shows that the engine is overheating, what should you do? Pull over safely, shut off the engine, and check the coolant level once the engine cools down. Immediately stopping the engine prevents severe, costly damage from overheating. And the next point, what is the function of spring brakes in an air brake system? They are powerful springs held compressed by air pressure. If air pressure is lost, the springs are released to apply the brakes, emergency parking. Spring brakes serve as a fail-safe mechanism for parking and emergency stops. What's next? When backing a commercial vehicle, you should always try to position the truck so you can back toward the driver's side. Backing on the sight side minimizes blind spots and is generally safer. Moving on to this. If you are convicted of an offense, like speeding in a personal vehicle, does it count against your CDL? Yes. All traffic violations count against your CDL. The FMCSA requires all convictions, whether in a CMV or personal vehicle, to be reported and counted. All right, let's see. If the shipper loaded the cargo, who is ultimately responsible for ensuring the load is within legal limits and secured? The driver. The driver is the last person to inspect the load and is legally responsible for its safe transport. That concludes our comprehensive review for the CDL General Knowledge Test. By mastering these hundreds of facts and procedures, you're ready to tackle the exam and start your career as a professional driver. Great job.